Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, and I want to welcome you and thank you for joining today's virtual town hall presentation. I will be sharing with you our new 3-year strategic plan for our district. This is a plan that will guide our work through the next 3 years into the year 2024. And before I go into any of those details, I just want to take a moment to introduce others that are here with me. And so I will ask the team members one-on-one to just quickly come on and show your screen and just introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Bethany Silver. I am the Chief Performance Officer.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Madeline Negron. I am the Chief of Academics.
Good evening, everyone. Nishat Blackburk, Chief of Family and Community Partnerships.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Davis Gooch. I am the Chief Operating Officer.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth Dell, Chief of Staff Fellow.
And I thought I saw John Fergus trying to introduce himself, and then he went off. There he is.
John Fergus, Director of Communications. Hello.
Thank you, everyone. And we also, I believe, have Viviana is with us as well, and Ms. Deb Zimmerman. Lots of support that they provide. There's Viviana.
Good afternoon. My name is Vivian Alvarado, and I'm the School Governance Council Manager.
Hi, I'm Deb Zimmerman-Hurst, Communications Coordinator.
Thank you, team, and thank you, everyone, for just allowing me to create a little space to not only introduce and welcome our team, but also to thank them, along with thanking the rest of our staff, our teachers, and our support staff for the tremendous amount of work and the resilience that they have brought forth this entire year. Okay. So in our next slide, I just will take a moment to remind us that we are going to hold a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And we will make sure that we answer the questions in the time allotted. If you are joining us as a webinar attendee, please remember to raise your hand during the question period, and we will call on you so that you can submit your questions, or you can submit your questions in the chat box. Our YouTube viewers, please add your questions in the chat box, and with any remaining time, we will answer questions that were submitted as well in advance, because we did get a few questions in advance. So first, I want to give an overview of the overall strategic planning process. We did begin this work by gathering early input in the fall through the Fall Learning Experience Survey and several principal conversations. And then we began strategic planning in December. We shared a draft and gathered feedback on the plan itself from a variety of stakeholders, our students, our families, our staff, our community partners. And then we used what we learned to shape our ESSER 2, that is our elementary and secondary schools emergency relief fund application, but also we use that information to revise our strategic plan. And with that revision, we are now moving to sharing back with all of you what we heard on feedback. And we also wanted to show how that feedback is actually showing up in our strategic plan. At the same time, we are beginning to do some of the design and planning work so that we can be prepared to begin implementing some of the things that we said we're saying we're going to do to improve outcomes for our students starting this spring. So our new strategic operating plan is grounded in our mission, our vision, and the district model of excellence priorities. We are committed to 4 priorities: our high quality teaching and learning, making sure that we have welcoming school cultures and a climate that is nurturing. And we want to continue to prioritize engaging family and community partnerships and having skillful staff and effective operations. If you recall, we began our survey by asking our community which of the goals that we had identified mattered most to them, and also why that was. And we saw a strong emphasis on improving 3rd grade literacy. You see that the higher bar there, and also chronic absenteeism. And I wanted to just take a moment to share 2 quotes from respondents on why the goal that they chose matters to them, right? You can see here that one family member shared that reading leads to the success of the other 3 goals. The more proficient a reader is, the more likely they are to use reading strategies in all content areas. And if they feel more successful in schools, they're going to more likely want to attend school. And another respondents shared that this was a school leader, that they chose attendance because none of the other 3 goals are possible if students are not attending school. And we specifically wanted to share these 2 comments and feedback pieces because they are a good example on how the individual goals and the strategy reinforces itself, right? When we see success in one area, it'll help build success in another area, right? If our students are coming to school every day, ready to learn, they're then going to have improved outcomes in reading and in other areas. We also asked our students and families and staff which of the strategies in each of those 4 priority areas is most important to them and why. And so I'm going to start by sharing in the priority of high quality teaching and learning, and in the priority of welcoming culture and nurturing climate. You can see here in these graphs that there was strong consistency across our stakeholders, those that responded. Our community overwhelmingly prioritizes having a system of supports to meet student needs, both in academics, right? You see that in the blue, and then also in social and emotional areas. And, I remember one of the community-based partners, a response that they shared, letting us know that this addresses the whole child and all of the child's needs. And learning this really reinforced for us the need to invest our resources, especially the added COVID relief resources, in what is called a multi-tiered system of support. That is making sure that we have supports for students at different levels. If they need supports in the classroom, if they need additional supports throughout the day or after school. And this remained a top strategy for us to implement really quickly. And you'll see how that is going to show up in the work that we're going to begin doing. Our community also puts roughly equal weight on family engagement and real world learning opportunities for students. So these 2 strategies are under our priority of making sure that we engage family and community partnerships. And as you can see here, the feedback weighs those 2 equally. And as a result of that, we remained steady, placing relatively equal emphasis on the 2 strategies. And we'll also show how those investments are supporting these strategies, how the investments are going to support the strategies. And this last priority around skillful staff and effective operations, there was more variety here in what our community prioritized. Staff recruitment and retention and staff collaboration and continuous improvement were higher priority among our stakeholders. However, one thing that we also heard was that our stakeholders were a little surprised to see that there was a higher number of strategies under this priority than in the other priorities. And so we took that into consideration, we reflected, and that helped us see that we could actually consolidate some of the work around facilities and staff development into a narrower set of priorities. And so you will see that in the revised plan, we now have 4 strategies instead of the 6 original strategies that we had identified. And lastly, we also asked our families what would need to be true for their child, your child, to be successful over the next several years. And on the left side of the slide here, you can see a word cloud of all of the responses received. And you know, the larger the word, the darker the word, that signifies that means that those were more prevalent. And so on the right-hand side, you can also see some quotes from our families that really, you know, help bring to life and to light the major themes that we heard. And we heard 5 themes. We heard that in order for your child to be successful over the next few years, that they really needed high quality teachers in the classroom. We also heard safe, positive learning environments, extracurricular and enrichment activities, supporting each individual student's unique needs, and helping parents support student learning at home. This is an overview of where we've landed with our strategic operating plan. It shows our 4 major priorities across the top, the vision statements under each priority, and then those core strategies. And I know there's a lot here on this image. We have designed an easy to understand double-sided flyer that highlights the priorities and the strategies that we are going to share in the near future. And also along with a full plan overview, in addition to the recording of this town hall, all of those will be posted on our website and shared in our newsletter with all of the different groups, all of our stakeholders in the coming week, just so that everyone gets an opportunity to really look closely if they do want to and understand not only the priorities and the strategies, but what you can be looking forward to as it relates to student support and staff support and family support. The goals remain consistent. I want to take a moment to share with you why we believe that these are the right target numbers for math and reading proficiency. I specifically want to call out our math proficiency target, which is 27%. And just a quick note that we are sharing these goals, and what we're saying is that these are the goals that we are going to achieve. We're aiming to achieve these goals by the year 2024. And Hartford students, like many of their peers across the country, have on average struggled the most in remote and hybrid learning. And after looking at our student math data closer at the midpoint of the year, we did revise the target number down in recognition of the starting point next year. And we feel that 27% proficiency is an increase that is both ambitious and also that is doable. Our current performance places students at 11% in terms of math proficiency. And that number reflects performance on our internally designed assessment that is aligned to the SBAC test. And that is an assessment that was administered this winter. Our target for the end of the year is 17.9. And, we believe that through adding steady increments every single year of 3.1% should bring our performance to 27% by 2024. We know that an annual growth of 3 percentage points is ambitious, but it is also feasible. We believe that it is not impossible for us to reach that goal. And we also want to acknowledge that a 3 to 4% annual increase as our target for both reading and math. It might sound low, but we know that they are ambitious goals. In reading, for example, the research tells us that a 2% annual increase would be considered a success. And now that we are investing this additional, all of these additional supports and resources, we definitely believe that we can achieve our goal. And so now I actually want to talk about what some of those added investments are. When we were designing when we were putting together all of the information that we heard from all of you, when we were looking at our student data, when we were looking at the research and the best practice, we had in mind what we call a principle, something that was really, guiding the way we were going to think about all of these things. And we really had a target of recovering, right? Helping our students make gains, especially in relation to the interruptions that they had in learning. And so we chose to focus our spending, right? The new resources, the added resources that we have on academic and social emotional supports, because we believe that that is what is going to help us move the needle, meaning that is what is going to allow us to get to better student outcomes. And there's other ESSER, right, COVID relief spending funding that we are going to also dedicate to infrastructure and operational excellence that supports teaching and learning. For example, health and safety measures, making sure that we continue to look at our progress and get better at doing what we said we were going to do, and also our technology infrastructure. We know that there's technology that we have to ensure students and our staff and our families have access to. So what you can see here is, the total amount that we are getting for the relief funding. There's a first allocation, which is $45.7 million. And we wanted to show you here how those funds are going to be distributed. And on the top there, you see that the majority, 84% or 38 million of those 45.7 million are going to be dedicated to towards academic and social emotional learning. And we specifically are going to talk about what we have identified as our must wins that are going to show how those $38 million are going to support our students. And then you can see that there are smaller percentages that are dedicated in other areas. The next larger percentage is $5.4 million, and that is toward protective equipment, additional nursing and custodial services, and upgrades to our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, all because we want to make sure that our schools, our classrooms, our spaces, our learning spaces and workspaces remain safe for all of us and for our students and staff. So if we look in the next slide at our must wins, right? I just talked about those $38 million. So this is how those $38 million are targeted. We have prioritized, for example, in the blue area there, expanding learning time and targeted support opportunities in and outside of the school day. And what that will look like, we're still fine tuning some of the details, but it is going to allow our students to have extended learning time by expanding our summer school. Our summer school is going from 12 schools to 30 schools, and from about 3,000 students to being available to 10,000 students. We are also going to have intersession academies during our winter or spring breaks. We are going to have opportunities for students to come in and get opportunities to have additional academic enrichment. Saturday opportunities for students and evening opportunities for some of our older students. In the purple section, we are increasing supports for not only our teachers, but also for our leaders. We know that students now, many of our students now will have, as a result of the interruptions in learning and the pandemic, a higher level of need, a deeper level of need. And so with that, we want to make sure that we support our staff so that they can be ready to support our students. And so that means that we're going to make investments. Dr. Negron and her team in the Office of Academics are going to work towards adopting a high quality curriculum and materials. We want to make sure that our students also have access to high quality materials so that they can, not only learn at the grade level, but also be able to have access to curriculum that they feel that they can see themselves in, that is culturally responsive. We also want to support our teachers and staff by having more time for them to collaborate and to learn from one another. And we want to have added coaching and supports for teachers and for our building leaders as well. In the blue section, this is our commitment to connecting every student to an adult advocate and also expanding supports for students. We want to focus on re-engaging some of our students that, might for a variety of reasons not be fully engaged or showing up in person or virtually. We want to have added funding for expanding our family and community partnerships. One of the things that our Chief Black Burke in our Family and Community Engagement Office is going to be leading is our new Parent and Caregiver Academy. And we are also expanding the model that we have that provides added supports to schools. That model is currently called our community schools model. And that is going to expand to an additional 4 schools. And so we'll have 11 schools that are now going to have that model that provides what we call wraparound supports for students during the school and after school, and also supports for the family. And in the green space there, cultivating a sustainable teacher pipeline. That's another way of saying that we're going to ensure that we bring in, that we hire the best, and that we're keeping the best, and that we're supporting the best teachers, and that we specifically pay attention to the schools that have the higher levels of need. Oftentimes, those are the schools that have a higher a higher number of teachers that leave the school. And so we want to make sure that we support teachers so that they can stay with us and provide continuity and excellent teaching and learning for our students. And we have there across at the bottom what you see that says equity innovation grants. And those are opportunities for schools to try to do something new, something that they're trying, that they want to pilot. And we want to provide opportunities for schools to be creative. And so, this is an example of how out of those $45 million, the majority of that is going to be invested in ways that directly impact students, teachers, and staff, including our school leaders. And I'll provide you now an even more detailed view into what those investments mean in terms of staffing. So we have the opportunity through this additional influx of money, the relief funding, to have potentially 173 additional positions across, over the next 3 years. That's a big opportunity that we have. It's a great opportunity that we have to support our schools. And we also want to be mindful that, the money is also going to run out in 2 to 3 years. And so we had to really be smart about our thinking and our design. And we thought, well, if we hire all these people, what's going to happen after 2 to 3 years when the money goes? Does that mean that everyone's going to have to go? So it turns out that we looked at all of our data, and every year we have a number of retirements. We have teachers, for example, that move into other positions, either as coaches, as teacher leaders, as administrators. And so throughout those, we believe that we're essentially going to be okay, that we're not going to be in a situation in which we're going to have to reduce all of these positions, all of the people. We're going to be able to keep many of these people as others retire and move on into other roles. So that's a plus, that's a positive for us, that we'll be able to retain our talent that we're getting with these investments. So to close, in terms of, the feedback that we heard, I wanted to give an opportunity to highlight what we heard from many of you, from our stakeholders, and how that is reflected in our 3-year strategic plan. So here are some examples, right? So our students told us that they wanted more flexibility with when and how they learn. They also said, we need additional mental health supports. And in this plan, you will see that we have, for example, evening school offerings and additional mental health supports for our students, clinical staff, additional social workers, wellness spaces in all of our schools. Our families requested more individualized student support and more school spending, more school-based funding. This plan definitely increases the system of supports for students in academics and also in social emotional support. We're also offering targeted class size reductions. There are schools that have a deeper level of need, and so we are going to have targeted reductions in the number of students in a class. And we're also, like I mentioned before, increasing the amount of community schools, the community schools model. Our school leaders requested strategies to reintegrate students and to reconnect our students with their peers, with their school, with their teachers as they're returning. And they also requested support in hiring highly effective teachers So we are going to invest in supports to help our principals re-engage their students and having incentives, for example, for our staff or teachers, especially in our hard to fill areas. Our board members, for example, requested that we prioritize the teacher pipeline, especially ensuring that we recruit and we retain teachers of color, and that we invest in family supports. So we made sure that we are devoting resources to the teacher pipeline and the launching of our parent academy. So those are some examples. And we really wanted to make sure that we did two things. One is to come back around and engage one more time to say, here's what we heard, here's what it looks like. Oh, and by the way, this is what the explicit example or the experience would look like in schools. And I'll now in the next couple of slides speak to some of that, right? So our students, you can see here on the right, some of the things that our students told us. In one of the focus groups that I had with students, they were very clear that they wanted more job shadowing, more internship opportunities. And so to the left, you're going to see what some of the things that our students might expect to see in the next 3 years. More individualized academic supports like tutoring, definitely real world and career readiness learning experiences and internships, before school, after school, intersession opportunities for our students, more athletic offerings for students across early grades all the way up to high school. In our next slide are some voices, examples of voices from our families and community that informed our design. Right, we heard here that the inclusion of extending the care for after-school programming. So we are going to have more community schools. Those are schools that, neighborhood schools that offer wraparound supports for the student and for the family. And in our next and final slide that shares the voices that we heard, here are some voices from our staff. Staff letting us know that it would be great to have a 3-year plan that builds on the skills that our teachers need to teach reading at the younger grades. A lot of work has already started, and so we want to make sure that we continue to build on that. So what might that look like for staff over the next 3 years? More collaboration and planning supports for our teachers. So that was, I know that was a lot. So I thank you for bearing with me as we share not only the feedback that we heard, the themes, but how that's gonna live through the next 3 years and how we are going to use this great opportunity that we have with the additional recovery funds. And next steps, the new strategic plan materials will be posted on our website. And currently we're going to continue to design and the planning work to prepare ourselves for these strategies, some of which are already being developed. For example, we are already recruiting families and students for our summer programming. And other aspects of the work will continue to evolve into the summer and into next year. We will be using what we heard from all of you, from all of our stakeholders during the design work, so that we can ensure that the strategies we build are really designed to meet the needs of those that are most affected by that, and that is our students, our families, and our staff. And so I wanna thank you for sharing your thoughts and your suggestions with us, and for joining us so that we can share back what we heard and how that's going to live out. And I will stop here so that we can save some time for questions.
Superintendent Torres Rodriguez, just a quick note, we do have a few attendees with us here in the Zoom. If they have any questions, they can raise their hand. I'll keep an eye on that. And in the meantime, I'll take some of the other questions that we've received. What additional, let me see. How will schools and or the district help students struggling with mental health issues?
It's a great question, and a variety of ways. So there are specific investments that we're making. We have, I believe, 20 or 21, there was one of the slides, counselors and social workers, additional, that we are investing in. We are also investing in additional training and professional learning for all staff, not just our teachers, all staff, around trauma and how trauma impacts our students, how might that show up in behaviors, and how we can respond in a way that really supports students and their needs. And we're also supporting student mental health also by providing opportunities for our families to learn about trauma and mental health needs, and how they also can learn strategies to support students. And the other piece to that is the enrichment. We know that it is also important for us to meet the needs of the whole student. And so with that are the opportunities for, the art, the music, the wellness, the extracurricular activities that also can address, can serve as an outlet of expression for our students.
A follow-up to that, and it dovetails with what you just said. What additional arts and extracurricular activities could be provided to students?
Yes. So, in addition to having our athletics and through those extracurricular activities, and those are actually going to be in the lower grades as well. Schools have the opportunity now through added funding to do additional clubs. And so if there are ideas that students and families have, I recommend that you connect with the school leadership, the school principal, and let them know of an idea that you might have for additional clubs, whether it is drama or painting. We now have more opportunity to do that. The other piece is in the after-school programs, right? We're going to expand after-school program offerings, so our community partners will be able to offer more additional activities, fun activities as well, for our students. I mentioned earlier that we are having opportunities on Saturdays, and so some of our schools will offer programming on Saturdays, not only for academic enrichment, but for other activities as well.
How will the district use federal relief funds to promote academic growth?
I can start the question, and then I can also ask Dr. Negron to share some examples on how we're going to support academic growth through supporting our teachers. I'll talk about the student, how some of this will live out for students. So the tutorial, we are looking to have what is called high dosage tutorial. And that is opportunities for tutoring for students during school and after school, but tutoring in small groups 2 to 3 times a week. We know that research says that is very effective if it is the same tutor that is focused on helping the student on very specific skills. So that's one example of how that will play out for students. And Dr. Negron, if you can share one example of how we're making additional staffing investments to support our teachers. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Torres Rodriguez. One of those investments that we are making here is in building, aggressively going to bring supports to Bill and continue to support our teachers in building their capacity, right, as they're working with our students and meeting a variety of diverse needs, right? That is why we're going to be very aggressive in our professional learning plan that we are hoping to roll out. But in addition to that, you also heard the superintendent mention that we are making a significant investment on additional resources as it relates to educators, right? So it's about bringing in, for example, resource teachers that are going to be able to work in our schools alongside with our classroom teachers to provide additional supports, academic supports that we know are needed for students, as well as making investments in instructional coaches, right, to support again in building capacity. So I think we're looking at all aspects, right? How do we support the student via the support that we're bringing to the teacher to support his or her students? And then how do we support those that are charged with supporting the teachers to get better at all the different strategies that they employ? Those are just a few examples that I can share at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Negron. And, as you heard Dr. Negron, you can think of it as layers of support, right? We're supporting the student, we're making sure that we're supporting the staff, the teachers and the staff, our paraeducators, and we're also having another layer for our school leaders. And also for us as central office, we too are going to learn alongside of our teachers and our leaders and our students.
Will all students be required to attend a longer school day?
No, it's a great question. At this point, that is not the schedule for next year. There are a few changes to the schedule. We're actually going to, it is on the agenda for our next board meeting, but I'll share with you what the changes, the proposed changes are. We are keeping the half-day Wednesdays. That is something that we heard from our teachers that was very helpful. The added opportunity for them to get better, continue to learn from one another this year. And so we want to make sure that we continue to create that space, that investment in that time. And so during those half-day Wednesdays, there's going to be a deeper focus on how do we support teachers to become their best self as teachers, and also all other staff, right? How do we support our paraeducators? And so that's a change that's going to happen, keeping half-day Wednesdays. We are having intercessions, and so that means that we're not requiring all students to come to our intercessions, but we know that many of our students are going to need additional supports to get caught up. And so, in order to find additional opportunities, that can happen during the intercessions and during the February and April break, during our winter break. And also, our summer opportunities are going to continue to exist. After school programming, it's not going to be mandatory for everyone, but it is going to be an opportunity for our students. And like I mentioned before, the Saturday opportunities in some of our schools. If it comes a time in which we're considering, extending the school year for everyone, that is a much longer process, right? We really want to make sure that we engage, with everyone to make that decision together. Any other question, Mr. Fergus?
I was on mute. Apologies. This is our last question. How can parents better support their child's learning at home?
That is a great question, and that is one of the recurring themes that we heard. Our parents saying that they want to, and they want to learn more. And you have our commitment. We're actually so excited. We get so excited to hear that. I'm going to ask our Chief Black Burke to speak to her initial thinking about what that's going to look like next year. Know that already we are working on a partnership that is specifically focused on trainings for parents around trauma, like I mentioned before, and how our parents can support students. What are specific skills? How does a student reset? A challenging moment. And so that's just one example. But we want to make sure that our families, and Chief Black Burke, you can expand on this, continue to provide spaces for students to do their homework if they're still learning remotely at home, to have a dedicated space for that learning. The communication is still very important by having an open communication with our teachers, with our staff at schools. That also helps students with their learning as well. And we will remain committed to making sure that we provide those monthly sessions that Chief Black Burke can speak to. Ms. Nuchette Black Burke, does she hear me?
I'm sorry, Dr. Torres Rodriguez. I'm thinking I'm having a bit of internet issues, so I heard bits and pieces of the question.
Yes, in terms of the question from one of our family members was, how can parents support learning? How can they help? How can they support their child? And I ask that you share some of the thinking for those plans for next year. What else are we going to do more of or differently next year so that our families can support their child?
Thank you, Dr. Torres Rodriguez. I'm turning on my camera and hoping that you'll be able to hear my response. But yes, so as we think about the upcoming school year, we would definitely want to continue sessions for our families to build on the strategies that are being provided at the school level. And we are hoping that we'll continue working with our families through learning sessions, through parent academies. So those are ways that we are looking to work with our families to assist them in their home as they're looking to support their students.
Thank you, Chief Black Burke. I think one other thing that I will add is the commitment that we have. We learned so much throughout the pandemic. And one thing that we learned is that, with the technology that we have, that gives us an added level of access on both sides. And so to be able to offer learning opportunities that can be accessible at any time for our families, and to continue to receive feedback from our parents, from our community, as to what are the learning sessions that we should be providing for our families. What are the experts that we should be bringing in to teach all of us on a specific subject? So we look forward to doing more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Black Burke.
And that's the end of our questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fergus. And again, I want to thank everyone for taking time to allow us to share what we heard from you, and what how that's going to show up for next year. It is a lot of work, and know that we are committed to doing the work because we believe in all of our students. We know that they deserve the best and that they are capable of achieving at high levels. And so thank you for the partnership. I wish you all a